Right. Hi, how are you today, Darren?
I am alive and well.
I'm Helen. I Took a Hike podcast, the social media aspect, editing, and helping film some of the videos and content creation and all of that. So we are here today for the second time to kind of, again, switch the roles. And I think we want to see if we can do something like this on a maybe consistent basis to kind of flip the script for you, and for the audience to really get to know you a little bit. So I know last time when we spoke, it was in December and the holidays were coming up. Um, but how was the rest of the holiday season for you? I know you were kind of overwhelmed with having three daughters.
Yeah. I think this is very relatable. My parents were over and they drove me
During
nuts.
the interview, when we had,
Yeah. So they stayed for a while. So that was great. Relatable. And obviously the three girls were a little hectic, especially with time off. But hey, they are back in school. The parents are back in Florida, and all is wonderful.
oh, good, good. Um, So season three has officially launched this week.
Yeah.
And I know last time you said, you have a lot of great, exciting hikes coming up. But given the fact that you live in the Northeast, it's not always readily available for you to just like kind of go out and hike. It's a little bit maybe too cold and guests don't really want to, traverse in that weather. But let us know like what we can expect in the coming weeks of what you've already recorded, and maybe some episodes that you are going to record for season three, if you can, some teasers.
So yesterday, Tuesday the 9th, we dropped our first episode of season three, which was Adam Posner, and it was a phenomenal episode. I think it was one of our best edited to date. It got straight to the point a lot quicker than normal. There was not as much lead up time. This is just a lesson in learning and as you progress, right? What does the audience want to hear? Frankly, what do I want to hear? And in that, I've listened to it now 4 times since it's been dropped. I don't listen to them prior because I don't want to add too much opinion, right? But I've listened to it a few times now, and just the energy between the guest and myself was phenomenal. And I hope that I can maintain that rapport with all future guests as well. We do have all of season three already recorded, and I think we're going to find a lot more of that, especially with the way we're editing things now and getting more to the point. As I said, our guests are very interesting this season. And we have many social media influencers, and that's a little bit by design, but also some default in there. Our heroes these days are the ones that we see most, the ones that we learn from the most, the ones that influence us the most. And we will certainly hear some extra influencers, including one of them being an OG influencer on LinkedIn, one of the original that cracked the code on how to spread your net far and wide and attract leads and sales from that platform. So I won't say who they are just yet. You got to tune in to hear them, um, but it's all good. And also to conclude this season, there's some new experiences. We're going to be traveling out to
Mm.
California, the left coast, to interview a very well-known Silicon Valley CEO, which I'm excited for. And then there's also one which we'll just say that it's going to be a game changer. It'll be a blockbuster of sorts to hear from this CEO. So all good. So much in store to come.
I'm sure people are like, can you just drop the name? But, sometimes you just have to kind of
Nope.
dangle and tease. Yeah.
Oh, suspense. We got to dangle that, right? We do it in business.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
Apple does it all the time. Ooh, wait for our press release, right? There's going to be an
Yeah,
iPhone,
exactly.
right? That's
Yeah.
just those in
Yeah.
show business.
Yeah. Okay, well, lots of exciting things then. So I'm guessing bigger names, not that the other guests weren't any bigger or smaller, but these are just more maybe well known, to the public eye. Maybe that's like a way we can say it.
Known in their circles, and some might be more well known outside of their circle.
Okay, all right. So that's always exciting, when you hear a podcaster interviewing somebody like famous or someone that they've always loved, and they're like, oh my gosh, they're on an episode, or people are more likely to tune in. So I'm really excited for I Took a Hike podcast just to be able to expand its guest um, list in a way, because I know we've been interviewing, definitely very interesting people, right? Like a violinist, people who own plant shops. There's so many things. And so, but now we're like doing that, but on top of that, on maybe on a bigger scale. So that's exciting.
Well, you
Um,
mentioned violinists, so Daisy Joplin is the violinist, right? Those in the musical circle, they know who Daisy is, but the average person who doesn't play in the orchestra or play an instrument might not know who she is. So it's a defining moment to be able to share that story with those who are not in the know, and those don't understand the intricacies of being a famous musician. And she is certainly very famous.
okay. Yeah, that's a good point to make. Yeah. I mean, I am not a violinist, nor do I know too much. So, when I heard her episode and learned that she was going to be on the podcast, I learned something, So, but aside from hiking and recording this podcast and being a husband and a dad and a business owner, all that you do, I know that you're you're a busy man. Um, you also have you're a business therapist.
Mhm.
And can you explain what that is? Like in simple terms, don't use big words, just like someone who has no idea what a business therapist means or is. I mean, people know what business means and people know what a therapist means. So you can kind of simplify that for people who don't know.
Yeah. Well, you just said it. That's what it is. Take business and therapists, put them together, and poof, right? We all need therapy. Every single person on this planet needs someone to talk to, right? It's just fact. And what I like to tell people when I first meet them, they ask what I do. I'll say, I help business owners out from under the rock that they are shouldering. Every successful business owner has had risks, fears, failures, setbacks. They've had to overcome them. Those take a toll on the mind, on the body, and the emotions of a business owner. If a business is in downturn, you will see that once great, thriving business owner start becoming a little bit more jaded, cynical. They will lack trust in their employees. I help break them free of that. We work on the people and the process and the products. We do all of the standard business coaching and consulting that any other business coach or consultant would do. But I like to focus on the emotional side of things too, because when we let emotions, the negative ones, creep in, we make bad decisions. So what I help business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs do is figure out what's the next move from a positive mind, from a level playing field as the worst case rather than a negative connotation.
Okay. And so do people who seek your professionalism and your help, are they usually already in kind of like a rut, and they're like their car's already breaking down and they're like, okay, I need to go get this into the shop? Or are they being proactive and they're just like, you know what, things are going great, but I should just probably get some maintenance done?
So I tell most of my clients, because this is the truth, more often than not, they have come to me when it's almost too late. Sometimes they come when it's too late, right? They've been harboring these negative emotions and feelings for way too long. So I'll give you a for instance. Partnerships are extremely tough. Partnerships can tear a business apart, or they can come together like Voltron and make this wonderful transformer and grow and thrive together. But more often than not, there is the fairness quotient that comes in where one partner feels that they are unfairly compensated, whether it's equity or overall compensation, or it's not fair that I work harder than my partner, or that my other partner doesn't work as hard as we do. And that's where you start seeing the rift in the business really start to grow. You really see that fracture. And human beings do what human beings do. We're all guilty of this. We don't see the therapist, or we don't put up the stop sign until the accident occurs, until it's too late. And more often than not, I am being brought in when it's a little bit too late. Not impossible. I love a good challenge. I thrive on challenge. But that's where, if I'm sensing it's very late in the game, I will just hit go right away and say, regardless of your feelings and emotions, we're going to do it my way. Move. I'm going to teach you the techniques, and we have no time to waste. Now, that's not always. Sometimes I do have clients that seek me out, realizing that if they want to get to that big audacious goal that they have, they need a guide. And they're wise enough to know that no business owner, no professional should go at it alone. You should always have someone you trust, either a mentor, a business therapist, a coach, a consultant, a friend, a colleague, a personal board. You should always have someone you can turn to bounce ideas, concepts off of, and possibly get a good sounding board to tell you you're in the right direction or wrong direction, to pump you up or push you back down. And that's
Yeah.
essentially what I do as a business therapist.
Yeah. I think you're so right. There's a lot of people who start a business, right? Usually, most of the time, they start it by themselves. And something that I hear often is when they start something alone, they're truly in it alone. There's nobody that they could be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? Or should we do this? Should our business name be called this? Um, they don't, there's no one to talk to. And I know that they say it can get really, you know, I don't want to say like they say it's lonely at the top, but when you're truly like the business owner and you're doing everything by yourself and you have no one to bounce ideas off of, you really are just kind of doing things by based on what you think, or what you feel is right, and maybe not necessarily by what should be done. And like what you and it kind of made me think of like athletes, right? Even the top of the top athletes, whether it's for your country or the Olympics, like they have coaches,
Yeah.
and it's definitely an aspect that I never really heard about. But again, I'm learning too. So it's like, you know, that there is a business therapist. I've heard of mentors,
Yeah.
like you can check in and be like, okay, this week, did you have 100 cold calls or something like that? But I feel like you are more than that, than just like saying, hey, go and read this book and make 10 cold calls. It's more like giving the strategy and the tools to really lay down a strong foundation to have the business succeed. So,
Oh,
um,
so there's a lot of touch points in what you just said, and you nailed many of them. So, mentors. I've always had mentors in my life. You should always have somebody that you look up to, you aspire to be. And sometimes those mentors don't even realize they're mentoring you. It's someone who you want to emulate. I remember my first official mentors, this guy, Emilio. He was the assistant manager at an appliance store I worked at. And I would just watch his every move. He was so sharp. He dressed well. He dressed better than he should have for the role he had. And he just took me under his wing and he taught me about selling and pricing and how to negotiate. He knew that he was helping me. He knew that he was taking this kid under his wing to mentor him. We never exchanged the words. We didn't have check-ins like that were officially scheduled, but whenever he saw me, he would say, "Kid, come here. Let me show you this. Let me teach you this." I will remember that forever. It's you probably have someone in your life that looks up to you as well, that you have done that with, whether it's a family member or not. Now, the difference though is if you look at when you're an employee, you have a manager. Your manager's job is to, well, manage. They take you under their wing. They have check-ins with you. They hold you to KPIs, the good ones at least. They don't yell at you. They guide you. If there's a problem, they look at the process. They don't lambast you, right? That's a mentor. That's a coach. You discussed how even the most professional professionals have a coach. This is not a what if or a maybe. This is not sometimes Tiger Woods has a coach. This is 100% of the time the most elite people have coaches. But often in business, we fail to recognize that. We fail to recognize that the most elite CEOs you will ever know, the publicly traded ones, the ones that run these billion-dollar companies, they have a coach, and the coach is called the board. The board is there to coach the CEO to make sure the CEO is doing whatever possible for them to deliver shareholder value. That's a coach. Someone is holding that CEO responsible. Well, in the small business world, sometimes the person who wanted to become a business owner doesn't make that connection. They don't realize they have never achieved the milestones on their own. Someone should be by their side coaching. Now, to pivot one more time, free advice is never listened to, right? Lots of people give you free advice. You see it all over social media, all over Instagram, all over LinkedIn. Everyone telling you how to grow by this or do this or hire this or recruit that. You won't listen to it because unless you're paying for good quality advice, unless you have aligned with a coach or a mentor or business therapist that you trust, respect, want to impress, and pay, you will not accomplish the goals that you need to because you won't take it as seriously enough, right? If I hire you to be my coach and we agree on a price and I feel like there is a quality to price match, and I, as your customer, feel like I am going to get the better end of the deal, I will get more quality than my cost. I'm going to make sure I utilize every single cent that I have paid you. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to want to impress you. If I just ask you for advice, thanks for the advice.
Yeah, I think it's so true. There's free information all over the internet, a combination of all social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, X. There's so much information out there, and LinkedIn. And so it's like, because it's free, and then the moment you pay someone, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm like soaking in everything that they're saying, and that they actually implement what they're learning. It's whereas like you said, free information is just 1 year in, oh, that's great information, and then 1 year out, and then you just never do anything with it.
Helen, if you want to learn how to be the world's best golfer and improve your swing for free, you can go online and find a billion pages on how to swing a golf club. You can take that knowledge, you can print it out like old school MapQuest, right? You can bring it with you to the range. You can buy a bucket of balls. You can read your guide. You could swing as it told you to do. But unless you have a real professional behind you observing your swing, making the little corrections, the micro corrections, how to stand, how to swing, you won't improve. But you have all that
Yeah,
knowledge for free.
yeah, yeah, and it's true because like even with and I view kind of everything in life as one thing. So, like you said, even with golf or even working out, right? There's been times where I did have a coach who helped me, like, let's just say, do a bicep curl. And before I was like kind of like using momentum. And
Mhm.
then she was like, no, you have to like just use the bicep and like bring the whole thing up. Simple things like that. It's the smallest tweak, but like I couldn't do nearly as much or lift as much, by that small correction. And she was like, this is how you really do it. And she was like, the dumbbell size does not really matter. It's the form and all of that, and that really makes working out differently and the efficiency, right? Everything is just so much better. So I imagine same thing with business therapy. It's like you're just doing this one part wrong and you don't know any better, right? You don't know what you don't know. So
Nailed it. You don't know what you don't know. And you are absolutely right. That is a great comparable because many of us go to the gym. There is a psychology. I just did a LinkedIn post mentioning the psychology behind the gym. You stare at yourself in a mirror. That is your favorite subject in the world, is you. And if it's not, well, then we clearly have a real reason for therapy, right? But that's your favorite subject. You're pushing yourself. Most dudes you see at the gym will do a bicep curl, but they'll pick up the heaviest weight possible because they're trying to impress the other dudes at the gym. Look at me, I can curl 50s. Great. And then we start cheating. Why? Because the body is going to overcompensate because the brain wants to accomplish something. Okay. So you're going to take those 50 pounds, you're going to start arching your back, you're going to swing your arm up, you're going to do 50s, and you sound and look great in your mind. Meanwhile, a professional, a coach, they would tell you, you're better off doing 10 perfect 35-pound curls where you're just using your arms to get a more effective arm workout than doing 3 or 4 50-pound show me offs. The
yeah,
show me off don't advance you. The show me offs get you injured. It's the
Yeah.
perfect storm that you need somebody who is being paid by your side, engaged, and wanting to see you grow.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I have just one more example to kind of like give this as an example of paying someone is sometimes honestly just worth every penny. So as an example, I've snowboarded since I was in high school, and my husband, Dion, he has never snowboarded. And because it's something I truly find joy and I absolutely love, he was so sweet about 4 years ago. He was like, I will learn snowboarding to go snowboarding with you. And I said, awesome. And I said, you should get lessons. One, I don't want to fight. Two, you should just learn from the professionals because I learned from friends when I was like 15, 16. And it took me so long to actually get okay, like to not fall. And it was because I was just kind of following my friends, and you don't know how to teach someone really at like age 15 and 16. And because those guys and girls are just, kind of doing things based on their feeling, right? And like emotion. And it's like, oh, I felt like this last time, so I probably shouldn't do this time. There's like no rhyme or reason for anything. And so it took me, this is embarrassing, but about 6 years for me to do toe side on snowboarding. I don't know if you snowboard, but I was
Do
just
not.
literally breaking the entire time for 6 years and was just doing like falling leaf. I finally learned it, and I said to my husband, just take lessons. He took 2 lessons, and he was riding down the mountain with me. And I, one, was so upset, but two, also proud. And three, I was like, this is when it is so worth just paying the money to get. I mean, he took it was 2 hours, and the fact that he was able to catch on so quickly. I mean, he wasn't fast and he wasn't like, anything amazing, but within 2 lessons, like just that alone in itself just says if you hire the right person to help you, especially in the beginning, to get those like, because we're a creature of habit. So if we keep doing something, we tend to like do it over and over. So you create bad habits. And so for him, he started out smart, and now he rides with me down the mountain, really well.
Oh, so you probably had a fear block at the age that you started to learn. You didn't have the right coach, as you said, right? You had people just, oh, do it, do it. Now, granted, you have an unfair competitive advantage when you're younger because the fear threshold is a lot lower. You just do things. Think of kids when they learn to ride a bike, they just get on and do it. Now, think of how crazy that is. You're hurtling down a hill on these two wheels and you barely understand the mechanics of a brake, but you just do it because your coach, your dad, or your mom told you it would be safe and you'll do it. Now, if I was to have one of my 9-year-old daughters try to teach my 5-year-old daughter how to ride a two-wheel bike, that would be a very scary situation for all of them, including myself. But by having a professional coach Guion through it, that professional was there to say, no, do it this way. That professional helped reduce the fear threshold and masculinity kicks in. Guion absolutely wanted to impress his wife. He probably wanted to show up his wife because you were probably a little bit of a doubter and naysayer, telling him your story on how it took 16 plus years to be able to leaf, right? So, of course, there's that competitive nature. Totally cool. And he also wanted to impress the coach. He didn't want to look like a wuss in front of his coach, right? So he had all of these competitive drives going on. But at the same time, his coach was reassuring him, you fall in snow. Who cares? Right? You get back up, you do it again. We all want shortcuts, right? We all crave working smarter, not harder, especially today when you have to speed up to master something. And the best shortcut you can have is to have people by your side that are very confident and holding you accountable to task, helping you allay fear, bringing out the best in you, and getting you to your goal faster because they have already met your goals. I tell my kids all the time, you have never been 43, and I have already been 9. I have experienced everything you will ever experience in your life until the moment I am no longer here. I will have been there and done that before you. So can you please, please just trust me? that outfit looks stupid. Movie night is
Oh my
not for
gosh.
watching movies, all that stuff, right? So anyway,
Yeah, that's funny. I imagine for you to be a very funny and humorous dad. I don't know if you feel like it, but the way you sometimes speak, I'm like, oh, you'd be such a funny dad.
my kids tell me that I'm cringe, and I remind them that I slay, and I try to master the words that they use today. But I can see it. I could come across as like dad joke central, but I do it on purpose because this is
Yeah.
what we have as fathers, is to embarrass our kids when,
Yeah.
as paper. But no, I have my moments. I have
Um,
my moments where I think I'm doing all right, and then I have my doubting moments where I probably could use a little support of my own.
of course. So I'm sure you have an array of different clientele in your business therapy
Oh boy.
business. What's like a common business, theme or something that you're seeing as like, okay, most of these people have this issue or they're coming from this, type of business, what's the commonality that you're seeing?
So there's a lot of them. There is I've been doing this long enough and been in business long enough to start recognizing patterns right from the get-go when I meet somebody. I normally will connect in the first meeting with the client because I can paint the picture of, let me guess, you're overworked, you are stressed out the max, your people are constantly letting you down, you don't delegate enough, but you know you have to, you can't find good quality people. It's all there, right? And it's everything I just said. These small business owners have a limited budget. You can't just spend money. You can't just hire, and you certainly cannot afford to bring on the highest, most professional talent in the startup to small business. That is not an insult. That's just the reality that the most professional people don't want to work for the business that just started with no budget. Just fact, right? So there's that challenge. How do we make the best with what we have? How do we delegate? How do we elevate our people? How do we grow culture? That's the main focus in small business. In the mid-sized businesses that I work with, it's typically, they took their foot off the accelerator for a little bit too long, and now they've been rolling backwards. Revenue targets are being missed. Accountability doesn't exist. KPIs are so outdated, if there are any at all. Or it's analysis paralysis because the business owner is staring at dogs. There he is. That's Norman. The business owner is staring at these massive reports of just data that they don't really use or utilize and don't understand how to manage. Right. So it's whittling things down and simplifying it so it's easier to be understood.
Got it. Okay. What is something that most of them are usually lacking that makes you kind of come in? Is there usually something that they're lacking or needing?
Um, yeah, a knowledge level, an experience level. Um, when you're bringing in a coach or a consultant or a business therapist, at that point, there was a push. There is the realization with the business owner, or at least one of the partners in the business, that we are broken. And that's why I say often at times it's too late because the pain has gotten so bad that they need the marriage counselor. And if you think about it, when marriages are really tearing apart, that's when you see the marriage counselor. That's where it's, we're getting close to the last straw. We can't deal with this alone anymore. And I don't have statistics on this. I imagine being a marriage counselor is extremely tough. You're dealing with the most heightened emotional state of a human being, the person that you can love the most or even hate the most. And a marriage counselor has to be the referee between it. And I'm willing to say that more often than not, I'm sure the statistics would show that if you're seeing marriage counseling, you're on your way to a breakup because it was too late. Whereas those that seek a counselor when there is turmoil, there is something that's bothering one of the partners, and the other partner says, "Okay, I agree, let's go." I'm willing to bet you there's a better success rate there.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that too. I mean, just like everything else, our health, our cars, like everything else, you kind of want to go before it's too late.
A prime
So,
example, unfortunately, the Boeing Max 9 that's in the news all over whenever this comes out. Well, that was in the news a week or 2 or 3 or 4 ago, whatever, right? They were receiving warnings. The lights were going on that there was a pressure issue in the cabin, and they did what human beings do is they just hit the reset button. There you go. And look, the light went away. I mean, I do that with my Jeep. Sometimes I get an engine light. Now it's gone. We're good, right? But that's the warning light. It's a warning for a reason. Had they not ignored that, maybe they would have figured out the issue.
yeah, yeah, for sure. That was definitely scary, So if someone has a small business or startup, whatever kind of business, what's a solid basic foundation advice that you could provide them to set them up for success or help them be proactive in bettering their business?
It's all depends on when the business was started. If it's an existing business,
Oh,
making sure that you have weekly meetings. They are only the amount of time that you need with your team. So we don't schedule an hour because we'll fill an hour. We schedule a half hour and we work efficiently. And then we hold people accountable to KPIs, realistic, smart goals, right? The strategic, the measurable, right? Those types of goals are the ones that we want to hold people accountable to. We review our goals. And more importantly, the worst thing to do to culture is start blaming people. If you have an issue, you have an escalated problem, assess the protocol, assess the process, the procedure first. See if there was a breakdown before you start pointing at people. And if you do have to have a people correction, do it in private. Praise in public, criticize in private, because you will take a good employee, in fact, you will take a great employee and turn them into just an okay performer by embarrassing them. And you cannot make up for an embarrassing moment. It just won't happen. You will lose complete trust from your employee. And as we all have seen, very cliche today, you are lucky to have employees. They chose to work for you. When they quit, they're firing you as a company. They'll be okay. You might suffer as the boss. And that's another thing.
hmm
Don't ever be a boss. No one works for a boss well. Be a leader, be an inspirational motivator, be a mentor, be a guide, be someone that is willing to coach and train because you want your people to perform. If they perform, it's less headache for you as the business owner, and it allows you as the business owner to perform as well. And then to add to that, if you're the business owner, you need to hold yourself accountable. If you set a goal, and I see this always, 100% of the time with all of my clients, if you set a goal to close, let's say $10,000 in business in January, and you don't, well, the business owner just said, oh, I'll do it next month. Great, it's your business. Awesome. That's not growing a business. If you hired a salesperson to do $10,000 in January and they don't, I would expect that you would coach them. You would find out what their pipeline looks like. You would ask, why did this deal not close that you forecasted to close? You would train, you would do whatever you could to help that employee, that salesperson, achieve their goals. Why is it
Yeah.
different when you're the business owner? You did not start a business to work for yourself, unless you're a solopreneur. You started a business to be your own manager. But the moment you have employees and customers, you work for them.
Mm, that's great advice. Yeah. Um, and so I imagine that you being a business therapist, you're pretty much a therapist. What's
Not licensed, so I could put the two together legally and say it's a marketing term. I don't have a psychological degree or
of
psychology
course.
degree. I have studied humans. I have taken body language courses and business classes. This is my superhuman talent is I can read people very well because I've been in touch with my own emotional state and what works and what doesn't. But I am not a psychologist or a licensed therapist.
Okay. And then so what has been a big challenge for you in being a business therapist?
At first, it was trying to attract clients. I think with any new startup venture, getting your message out there. Initially, explaining what a business therapist did took a little while, and then I came up with my elevator pitch. The confidence and the imposter syndrome that I can do what I'm doing. Even though I've had the business successes I've had, I still get imposter syndrome like everyone else that has achieved something. And then really just finding my method. For me, every coach and consultant, business therapist, whatever, they all have their own method, their own brand. So for me, it took the better part of 2 years to figure out what is the style, what is the brand, what is the message, and how do I go about, not just calling myself a business therapist, but actually providing the business the therapy it needs.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now it's 4 years, you know, lots of clients have been helped, and it's consistency. And if you keep doing things consistently, you're getting your practice, and then eventually you are perfecting or honing your craft.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everyone kind of has those getting started and getting off the ground kind of struggles. So I know that a lot of people don't do something because they're afraid of failure, right? They're afraid to fail themselves, their spouse, their parent. It doesn't matter. Just the word failure is what prevents them to do anything. So, with that topic, do you feel like there is no real failures in life? Because I think this is something that you may have mentioned, and maybe I'm making this up, but you said that we're always learning from something. Even if something fails, it may have failed, but you actually learn something so that you can be better for the next venture or the next version or a better version of yourself, right? So I'd love to kind of get some idea and thoughts about failure from you.
So there are real failures. There are plenty of failures in this world. The big extreme, Boeing, has been a huge failure lately, right? They fail to protect human lives. They fail on safety. That is a failure. Now, that's an extreme example. I have failed so many times. I have had more failures than successes in my life. But it's after a while, you learn to pivot away from something that's failing. You learn how to use your intuition to recognize if something you're working on is not going the way that you planned because you set up the right goals or milestones or metrics. Failure is great because you sear in and you lock the biggest learning lessons from making mistakes, from failing. All failure is just real, but what you choose to do with that failure will determine the path that you're on. For me, I love the micro failures. I love failing fast. If I fail fast, I didn't waste time, energy, or money, right? Recognize real quick, okay, that didn't work. Let me pivot over here. The major ones, well, most major failures are because you stayed at your conviction or stayed at doing something for way too long and you ignored all of the warning signs. Back to Boeing, they ignored the pressure light. It failed. That's a major failure. It would have been a minor failure that they could have most likely fixed and prevented the catastrophe if they didn't ignore the light. There's warning lights and signs off everything that you're doing. If you're trying to sell a product and is not working, well, do you keep going and going and going and going? No, you look at the process, you look at the people, you look at the product, you keep tweaking it, you reevaluate it, you look at your competition, you see what they're doing. What are you not doing? What are you doing better? What are they not doing better? Right? It's a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's okay to fail. Keep failing, but use that as a way for you to propel yourself to lots of wins, lots of successes.
Okay. People who don't start something because of their fear of failure, what's something that you can say to kind of help them reframe their thinking and their mind so that they can, be like, okay, I fail. I mean, that's such a hard thing for some people to admit. Some people don't ever want to show that they're weak, don't ever want to show that they're failing. They only want to show the Instagram worthy, the best highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
Sadly, the world that we live in. But, this is something, even if people aren't obsessed with Instagram worthy looking photos, they are afraid to start that YouTube channel, start that business, start a family, whatever, or like ask that girl out or boy out, whoever. So, what's like an advice that you can help them just to reframe their mind?
Failure is not weakness. Not doing something is weakness. I just had a first client engagement right before this call that we're on right here. And the client was debating on if she should become a business owner or apply for a new job because she doesn't like the one she has. She's underappreciated, all of the things that you don't want in a employment situation. And we started having our conversation, and I told her that she's going to fail. She might as well not even start a company. She has a great idea, by the way, for a company. You're going to fail at it. That right there is what people need to hear. You're going to fail at starting a business. Why? Because statistically, the majority of startup businesses fail within the first year, something like 80% of them. And of those 20% that make it, they do not make it to the fifth year. We're talking about a very small window here of success. But if you go in knowing that someone is saying you're going to fail, if you're a strong business owner and you're the one that's going to succeed, well, you don't give a shit. You want to prove me wrong. Because guess what? Every competitor you have is also going to say that you're going to fail. Every customer that doesn't like you is going to say that you're going to fail. Anyone that you've ever bested is going to be jealous of you and they hope you fail. Social media loves the winner, but we love to loathe the winner, right? Everyone wants you to fail. And if you can't push that aside, completely ignore that head trash, then you will fail. So prove me wrong. Prove to me that you're not going to fail. And if you can minimize that fear of risk, fear of failure, if you can say to the naysayer, true, I'm going to prove you wrong, then you have a fighting chance of succeeding.
Mm-hmm. I can see that being a pit motivation for someone to be like, I mean, they say that type of fire is what gets people going, you know? So I love that you admit you failed at so many things in life and you have more failures than successes, you know?
True.
And it's true. We only see like the wins, we only see what we want to see, which is always usually the good stuff. So not business related. I'd love to know what.
Sort of.
Oh,
Well, we're in a very negative focused world, right? It's the reason why I turned off the news. I don't watch the news anymore because it's just head trash. It's garbage. It sucks you in. And the mind and mentality that you are in, your frame of mind, is how you view the world. If you start off thinking that things will fail, guess what? You're the unlucky black cloud person. Things always seem to fail for that person. If you start off positive and anything that's negative, you find the silver lining or push aside, well, guess what? All of a sudden, you're winning. Your luck is there. Yay, you're lucky. Right? It's the mentality that we have. I love to be the glass is always half full. Am I always like that? No. Intuition, I'm getting older, you get more jaded. Great. But when it comes to business, everything is possible. Everything is possible.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just keep thinking about what you said. Failure is not weakness. And I think that is a great phrase for, whoever is watching or listening to take that away, and I think even successful people who are succeeding and have succeeded, that is a constant kind of like good reminder. But I'd love to know, that's not business related. What's something that you recently failed at? So something personal.
Skateboarding. Yep.
Ooh, okay. So is that
At
something
the
new?
age of yeah, so like you as a snowboarder, I wanted to skateboard and I fell off too many times. I let fear and failure combine and I threw it out. I literally chucked my skateboard out at probably 14 or 15 years old. I sucked at it, even though I had this really awesome Powell Peralta. Well, the age of 40, my child, one of my daughters, got a skateboard and she was on it and she loved it. So I said, let me try. I actually brought back that kid in me. Now, mind you, 40, things aren't mechanically as nimble as they were, but I did it anyway. I bought a really cool land yacht skateboard. I was skateboarding around the block. I was a skateboarder in my mind. I had my ego flex, right? Helmet on, no elbow pads. Awesome. So I decided to go around a park that was right behind our house, and there was a really cool 2-mile loop, and some of that goes downhill. And I'm doing it. I'm awesome. Yay. I'm swerving in and out, curving, carving. No tricks. I'm not that cool, right? And then, well, my eyes spot a pothole and a couple cyclists to the left and right of me. Well, in skiing, surfing, skateboarding, and snowboarding, what happens? You go where your eyes go. Well, I started getting the wobbles, and every skateboarder knows when you get the wobbles, you get low to get that gravity back. I didn't know that until I Googled it. Hit that pothole in front of my children. They were waiting at the bottom of the hill. I skinned both palms, no skin on this one or that one. I'm lucky that's all that happened to me. I failed at skateboarding, and because 40 years old, that ego situation didn't work for me. Back starting to hurt, I gave up, but I failed at it. And the only reason why I'll say it was a failure is I didn't get back on the skateboard. Now, 40 something, I'm okay not getting back on the skateboard. It's fine with me. I don't need to be a skateboarder anymore, but it would have been cool to be able to ollie. And that was always a goal of mine, to be able to ollie. And I know there's skateboarders out there like, ollie, it's the easiest trick in the world. Yeah, try it when you're 40. Not so easy. Too much fear.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm sure having three girls, you do have to, I'm sure you teach them a lot of business aspects of life to them too. How do you teach your girls that it's okay to fail?
Same conversations. I talk to my kids like they're adults. Now I have my moments where they're just not getting it and I get frustrated, and every dad can relate, those moments. But I teach my kids about a P&L. One of my daughters is selling these little squishable things that she has. And I asked her, well, how much do you buy them for? She said, 50 cents. How much do you sell them for? She said, 50 cents. I said, okay. So now you have a hobby, right? So what if we do this? What if we take it up to $1? How much money would you have made? And then, I have to help her figure out the math. And I said, okay, so if you bought it for 50 cents, we'll call that your COGS, cost of goods sold. And you sell it for $1, how much profit do you have? And now she knows 50 cents of profit. Great. Eventually we'll get into SG&A, selling general and administrative. All right. How much did it cost you to sell this one item? But I'm coaching them through real life examples, the lemonade stand, the profit and loss from that, right? The costs of the sugar and the lemons and the time, right? And as they mature, I'll start teaching them more effective lessons where how they can just know their numbers like that. Every business person has heard that cliche, know your numbers. It is so critical to know your numbers. And you would not be surprised how many business owners I speak to where they don't know their numbers, or they'll throw the excuse, I have a CFO for that. You must know your numbers. It is so critical for you to make quality, sound decisions by just having those numbers right in front of you in your mind at all times. Teach my kids that concept as well. I would love, my dream for them, I would love for them to be their own manager. I would love for them to be business owners. Will I force them to be? No. If they want to do anything, they can do anything. That's my gift to them, to be able to do anything and succeed at it. But I would love for them not to have to work for somebody else to make somebody else wealthy. I would love for them to be in charge of their own fate, their own destiny as much as possible.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I feel that you provide this kind of freedom for your girls. You teach them what's beneficial to them, right? Like learning actual business tips and techniques from a real business therapist, and then kind of giving them the freedom of like, you can do what you feel is, their calling. This has been so fun to learn more about your business therapy business. I'm sure a lot of your clients are happy with you giving them the guidance. I personally learned so much about business therapy and what it really goes into. So thank you so much. But is there anything else that you kind of wanted to add before we end this episode?
I am on LinkedIn 6 days a week talking about topics of business ownership, entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, and the stresses and pains of being in a business, starting a business, and more importantly, selling a business. Follow that. I love commenting. I love contributing to other people, especially on the platform. I think that LinkedIn is the best platform there is, period, for networking and for your professional career. Personal branding is the number one thing that you could be focusing on in 24. You will be hired because of your personal brand. Your customer will align with you because of your personal brand. You will gain more this and more that because of your personal brand. If you're afraid or you have fear in putting something out there publicly, don't worry about it. It'll disappear anyway if it sucks. I've written so many things that have sucked. They just disappear. I was ridiculed for one of them, whatever, it'll disappear. But you don't get better without practice. Work on your personal brand. Follow my LinkedIn trail. I will contribute on your LinkedIn trails as well, as long as the message is positive. I love that. Hike along with us. I love hearing that the show has provided inspiration. It makes me feel great. I do this because I like feeling great, and I like when people feel great. It's more positivity. It's the karma bank. The more positive you put out there, the more positive you receive. Not crazy. Just choose to live my life that way. So I thank you and the hikers, the listeners, and the followers all along. Thank you.